Hi everyone, Tom Wolf here. In this video I'm going to be taking apart one of the patches from my soundbank, Atomos. The patch that I'm going to be deconstructing is called Wanton Destruction, and it's in the textures playable section of the soundbank. It sounds like this. And mod wheel. Okay, so it's a very dark kind of textural patch, great for adding tension. It's got this really random, quite natural feel to it. Very gritty, very grainy, very kind of lo-fi and slightly distorted. And then when we open the mod wheel, we've got this tremolo that comes in, which is nice for kind of giving it that pulsing rhythmic kind of feel to it. So let's have a look at how I created that patch. Now, on layer A, we're using this sound called Cellosaurus snoring, and it sounds like this. So that's one of the patches from Omnisphere's psychoacoustic sound sources. It's one of the Diego Stocco patches where he's created his own instruments and then sampled them doing all kinds of weird and wonderful things. So we've got this kind of natural sounding, very strange, it's got a lot of motion. It changes a lot in the sound. There's a lot that can be done with that. So the first thing we did is I switched on the granular engine. So I love Omnisphere's granular engine. I use it on a lot, and especially in this set because that was kind of how I morphed the natural sound sources. So let's switch that on. So fairly basic settings. We've got the grain depth quite high, the intensity quite low, smoothing around half, maximum spread, and then no detuning and no pitching. It's set to position, and we've set the position around here. Let's hear that. Now the position I've chosen there is quite a simple bit of the patch. It's not got anything too kind of outlandish, but it just has this deep kind of woody quality to it. We could change that if we wanted. If we move that along, it gets a bit more kind of gritty and deep. But we're going to use it around here. Okay, so let's go out the granular engine. So I'm just going to turn the attack up and have that about 1.5 seconds, and that just gets rid of that initial attack. We want this sound to kind of come in a little bit slowly, not too slowly, but we just don't want it to have too much impact the second it starts. And then we'll move over to the effects section, and on layer A we've got the vintage comp, which is giving it a bit of a kind of older grainy vibe to it, and squashing that a little bit. And then we've got the flame distortion. On the flame distortion we've got the mix set to 100%, and we've got it set to heat. We've got a little bit of gain, not too much, not going too crazy, and a little bit filtered as well. So that gives some of the kind of dark, gritty quality to the sound. Okay, so that's layer A. Let's have a little listen to layer B. So over here on layer B, we've got the same sound. The amp is set to 0 at the moment, so we're going to turn the amp modulation on. That's being modulated by LFO1. Okay, so if you have a look at LFO1 over here, we've got it set to random. That's because this is bringing some of the random quality into the patch. We've got it set to bipolar, so a lot of the time that amplitude is going to be in a negative value, which means it's not going to be sounding. So it's only bringing it out on occasion. We've got it synced, but it's synced to 1 bar, so it's quite a slow sync, and you can see it moving about already. So it's not always present in the patch. But let's have a little listen to how it sounds. So it's just coming in every now and then and adding something a little bit random to it, We're then going to switch on the granular engine, which is set to the same as layer A. So we've got the position set slightly earlier there. So we've got this kind of little peak here. And let's turn the amplitude up a bit so we hit more of it. So it's giving it this kind of scattered quality, which is quite nice. Okay, let's turn the amplitude back down now. So that's how we had it in the patch. We're going to turn the amp up. So that's going to be about 1.5 seconds, just like on layer A. This one also used the filter. So we're just getting rid of some of the toppiness using the filter. So we're set to basic 12 dB low pass, got the cutoff around midway, a little bit of resonance there, and we've got the key follow, and we've got the envelope modulation set to 0 because we don't want that to do anything. So let's play that. So that's just taking some of the edge off when it sounds. There we go. So that's giving it a bit more of a kind of resonant character to it. And it's just taking the top off a little bit. So then we'll have a look at the effects. Let's turn the amplitude back down again. So the effects on layer B, we've got the vintage comp again, which again is just giving it a little bit of a squash and adding a bit of kind of vintage character to it. And then we've got the proverb as well, which is giving it a lot of roomy ambience. Not too much on the mix. We've not got too much of it blended in, but it's just enough. The time's set quite high. Density is quite high. Size is around midway. Diffusion relatively high. Let's have a listen. So now having that random LFO controlling the amplitude doesn't seem quite so odd, because what's happening is when we're getting a little blast of that sound, we've then got that reverb tail creating this really kind of washy ambience behind the sound and dragging it out a little bit longer. So let's add that to layer A and see how that sounds. So we've now got that deep kind of rumble, and then we've got this toppy scattered type sound, which is just coming in randomly, not particularly frequently. That's why we've got the rate set to a bar. But it's adding character every now and then, and it's keeping this sound in motion and keeping it moving, which is great if we're using these kind of long, tense scenes and we want to keep it interesting. Okay, so the next thing is going to be the auxiliary effects. So let's turn the aux return right up. We're sending to the aux from layer A. We've got that turned up about halfway. We're not sending any from layer B because we don't want that, that randomized part of it to go into the aux. So on the aux, we've got the easy phaser. That's set to 100%, and we've got it set to 4-pole. We've then got the chorus echo, which is set to just under 40% mix. We've got that on an 1/8 dotted delay, a little bit of feedback, and a little bit of chorus here. And then we've got another proverb, which is set to just under halfway with a slightly, quite a bit shorter reverb time there, because we don't want that one to be too overpowering. So what's happening here is the phaser is creating a little bit of motion, and then we're creating a bit of extra ambience with the chorus echo and the proverb. So let's have a little listen, and we'll add those two in. So let's remove the phaser. So that's creating a little bit of phasey motion. It's not too drastic, but it just gives it a little bit more character. And then using the chorus echo and the proverb will add a bit more ambience. There we go. That's becoming a little bit more atmospheric. That auxiliary is creating this interesting effect that is taking that deep granular sound and just adding a little extra depth to it and a little something more interesting. So that's our patch. The only thing we've got left to do is the modulation. So let's have a look at our modulation here. We've got LFO2 controlling the level of 2 imagers, and then we've got the wheel controlling the depth of LFO2. So if we go over to our effects, you can see the first imager is on our auxiliary, and we can switch that on now, and the other one is on our common effects. Let's switch that on. So LFO2 is controlling the gain control. We're not doing anything to the stereo image. This is purely just as a utility, as an easy way to control the gain. So let's go back over to our mods, and we'll unmute the imager level, which is being controlled by LFO2, and then we'll unmute the depth. So let's have a quick look at LFO2. In fact, let's get that up. Okay, so here we are. So it's inverted. So what we're doing is when the LFO is working, it's turning down the gain, which is what's creating the tremolo effect. We've got a sine wave that's doing that. We've got it set to unipolar, so it's not increasing the volume as well. We've got it tempo synced, which is at 1/8 notes. And at the moment, the depth is set to 0. That's because our mod wheel is controlling the depth. So when we play the patch, we don't get that tremolo effect. But as soon as we open the mod wheel, it's increasing the depth. And you can see we're getting that tremolo there. And that's great when you're creating these tense scenes, because you can, again, it creates this kind of constant modulation that you can keep the sound moving. You can play with the mod wheel while you're, using this one kind of deep note that you just want sustained, but you don't want it to get too boring. So you just use the mod wheel there, and that creates something a little bit more rhythmical. So there's the patch. Thank you for watching the video. Let me know what you thought in the comments. If you'd like to check out Atomos and check out some of the other patches that are on there, then you can watch the walkthrough video on my channel, or you can find a link to the product page in the description. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, as I will be creating some more of these videos and showing you how to make different kind of sounds from my different sets. Until next time, take care.